All right.
Hey everybody, I'm Dan. Welcome to GuildMasterDan's YouTube show. My guest today is Andy Hopp. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
I believe so, yeah.
All right. He is he's the creator of what's called Lowlife.
Lowlife, yes.
And the Dementalism card game, and you run Corn on the Cob.
Yep, that's
Corn
true.
on the Cob, or is it like Cob like with two B's, like a Cob salad?
No, it's Cob 1B. You know,
1B, okay.
Corn.
And just to let the people at home know, what's the website address for that?
That'd be
cononthecob.com.
Yeah.
And when is that again? October 16th or 19th?
That's correct.
Okay, cool. So we're going to talk a little bit with Andy.
Yeah.
Oh, I slipped.
Yeah, there you go.
About various things. But first, we're going to do a little preface here, which we're doing right now, to let everyone know what's going on. And, if I'm not mistaken, we're going to talk about just all sorts of crazy jazz. We're going to talk a little bit about Andy's games, about his events.
That's true.
We're going to, maybe we'll even talk a little bit about me, because people like to know what Dan's been up to lately, if I'm not mistaken. Am I mistaken? I want to know what Dan. And so, without any further ado, shall we start?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So, Andy, what the hell is up with your hair, man?
Wrong side of bed.
Oh, all right.
Rad cowlets everywhere.
So people tell me that you're often mistaken for Danny DeVito. Is that true? And how do you respond to such allegations?
I guess I can see it, but I don't know. I don't think I have that much of a resemblance to him.
Yeah?
But I can see it, I guess. I mean, you know, the hair and the beard. Yeah, I guess I can see it, but
All right. Are you offended when people say that?
I don't think so. I mean, he's a famous actor.
I mean, he is a sexy man.
Yeah, exactly. Famous actor in a lot of good movies.
And he's rich.
And he's rich.
But,
yeah.
I mean, when they say that, are they like, hey, you look rich? Or are they like, you look short, fat, and bald? You know, which are they saying? Because, I don't know. Anyway,
I personally like to think that they're saying, hey, you look like a famous actor.
Okay.
You look like you can entertain me for 2 hours.
So it doesn't offend you when they do that?
No, I don't think so.
You could clear the air, get that out in the open. So, Lowlife, what is that all about?
Oh, well, Lowlife is this crazy, very stonery game.
Stonery, really?
Well, I should change that and say stoners would certainly enjoy it.
Okay.
Absolutely, in that everything's very out there and very over the top and silly and doesn't take itself too seriously. Definitely for people who like to play maybe more comedic role playing, or more at least role playing where they don't necessarily have to take it super seriously, or they can get into their role playing a Twinkie Man of the
Twinkie Man. Wow,
bazillionth century.
What a great idea. So, would you say though that it's like intelligent potty humor, or would you just flat out say it's just
I wouldn't say
potty humor?
I wouldn't say it's like crude potty humor, like say South Park or
so it's all
Drawn Together,
contextual. Right? Like the poop is funny not because it's poop,
but
because of the situation that it's
yes,
in.
Like towers made of poop.
Right.
Exactly.
Well, thank you for clearing that up, because I know some people out there might be kind of confused about it. So what's the premise behind Lowlife?
Well, it takes place a bazillion years in the future.
Okay.
And essentially, I would say the main race of people. I don't know. I use all my
Would you say, if asked, that it takes place gazillions of years in the future after humans are extinct, and everyone has evolved from cockroaches and Twinkies and the various dregs that survived the possible apocalypses? All of them?
I'd say it sounds like Adventure Time and Numenera had a baby.
Okay, but it came out before either one of those. You should probably
So
know.
by that, I mean a grandfather?
Maybe it was like one of those time machine error things.
Oh, yeah, it's its own
went
grandma.
back in time and birthed itself.
Yeah, it's its own grandma, exactly.
Okay, all right. Well, good to know. Thanks for sharing that with the viewers at home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then if you actually want to pretend that you're me for a little bit, you can do that if you want. It's kind of fun to pretend you're somebody else.
Yeah, sure.
Let's pretend I'm Andy and you're Dan for a little bit.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Want to do that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Hi, I'm GuildMasterDan. Obviously a little dressed down, but this is Andy Hopp, and he's going to talk to us a little bit today about the strange land of Mutha Oith.
Hello, everybody. I'm Andy, right? Andy?
Yes.
Okay, I'm Andy.
Andy Hopp.
Hop. With 2 P's?
Yes.
2 P's. Okay.
2 P's.
There are 2 P's in the word hop. Well, at least in the name hop.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Yeah. Okay, I'm here ready to answer your questions.
All right, Andy, why don't you tell us a little bit about Mutha Oith and what sort of place it is?
It's a crap hole. Can I say that on the TV?
Yeah,
on
absolutely.
the computer?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the
Did
internet.
you know? I heard they have the internet on computers nowadays.
Yeah, it's true. You know, not a lot of people know that, but yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so well, we just kind of did. Mutha Oith is what they call Earth, like way in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Every possible calamity and cataclysm, every single thing bad that you've ever seen in a movie or a book or anything has happened to the planet. Humans are extinct. This is a time called the time of the flush, when everything got flushed away. Then, actually, everything got wiped away. Get it?
Yeah.
The current era is known as after the wipe. So you get it? Flush and wipe.
Yeah, I got you.
You see there's a little...
There's a little
joke
potty
in there. See
yeah,
that? It's
there.
like flush and wipe. Anyway, but it's not really about poop, although it does exist. Anyway, so the society nowadays is inhabited by the dregs that survive. Well, actually, what they evolved into. So you've got croaches that evolved from cockroaches. There's creamphilians that evolved from Twinkies, and a whole bunch of other ones. And as part of all those cataclysms that happen, magic, which is known as Zazz in Lowlife, magic users are called Zazz Wranglers, and there's a whole bunch of different kinds, like Dementalists and Hocus Pokers and Holy Rollers and Danged Wranglers, which are like necromancers, and Giggity Giggers and Contaminators. Who harness the powers of filth and disease. Yeah, they're pretty badass. Anyway, I'm going to talk directly at you this time, but I lost my train of thought. Oh yeah, society is based on the misconstrued archaeological evidence of the extinct human race.
Okay, sure.
See, so you've got a whole bunch of religions based on, like there's
So, like, based on, like, baseball cards or something? Or?
Well, kind of. There are there's the humanitarians, which believe that the ancient humans were more deities than normal people. Of course, there's a whole bunch of different sects along the lines of that. And I have a book coming out next year called Holy Crap, which is all about the different religions. And that one is written by a guy named Credulous Schmeckel, who his thing... See, all the Lowlife books, talking to you again, are written from the point of view of an actual inhabitant of Oith.
Always like it when books do that.
So there's no game terms in the book at all until you get to the appendix at the end.
Oh, yeah.
So it just reads like an actual guide to the world.
Yeah.
Holy Crap is written by Credulous Schmeckel, and his job is he dedicates himself to joining every religion in the world that he can get to anyway, and just kind of holistically like dedicating himself to that religion, like orthodoxy. So, like, for a couple months, he might be a humanitarian and live among them and dedicate himself completely to that. And then he'll become a Jemima's Witness for a few months. And then he might become, like, a Crud Brother or a Suffering Sock. Yeah. That's a Creamphilian religion that's all dedicated to espousing the hatred of the ancient human race for the entombment and nutritive consumption of their ancestors back in the day. But anyway, so there's a whole mess of religions. There's like 35 of them that are going to be in Holy Crap. It's called the Great Sex Change Operation. See? See, you get that little pun there? S-E-C-T-S?
Yes.
Ah, clever.
A lot of wordplay in there.
There is a lot of wordplay. I love coining new words. It's like my thing. So, I coined a new word just the other day. It has nothing to do with Lowlife.
Yeah.
But I like when you can just change like one letter of a word and it becomes a completely new word. Right? Like the one I made up the other day. Are you ready for it? It's so fun. It's called Princessed. And it's what's called inbreeding among royalty. Yeah, see? I like that.
Peeking into the mind of the creator.
Yeah. I was at Waffle House the other day, and there was a truck that had the word princess on the side of it. Yeah. And I was like, oh, princess, that's fun. So feel free to use it, but don't use it in print, because I might do that soon.
Oh, okay. Well, speaking of princesses and such, are there, like, in the world of Mutha Oith, are there kingdoms or any, like, set groups, I mean, other than the religions?
The book that came out last year, The Whole The Gadabout's Guide to Mutha Oith, Volume 1, Keister Island.
Written by?
By Tucana Condor Flaminguez.
Huh. Okay.
Yes. He, I should explain, is a Tizant.
A Tizant?
Tizants are improperly combined mishmashes of ancient extinct organisms.
Okay.
So there's this place called the Primordial Soup Kitchen.
Okay.
Okay. it, throughout history and prehistory, has been collecting traits from organisms using giggities, like we played in Dementalism yesterday, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Yeah. Anyway, what happened was the Primordial Soup Kitchen is they kind of collect traits from organisms in the hope that if there's some major disaster, they could bring them back. If something goes extinct, they can bring it back. But one of the calamities that happened is they lost all their recipe cards. So they
have all the different ingredients.
They got all the ingredients, they don't know how to combine them. So they make, like, wuzzles. Remember wuzzles from the 80s? Maybe not. When were you born, like 95? Who are you?
No,
You're
I'm not that young. No.
Babe in the
87.
woods. Okay.
Now, I probably still missed that,
Right.
but 87.
Anyway, Tizzants are miscombined organisms. So, toucan, condor, flamingo, he's part toucan, part condor, part flamingo, and part anaconda, all mixed together. And also part gibbon, although the gibbon isn't in the name. But he's got arms of a gibbon.
Okay.
Because, you got to give him arms. You don't have to, but it's kind of hard to play.
So you're into things like a frog, rat, bat, giraffe.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, and they're created by the Primordial Soup Kitchen, supposedly. No one knows for sure. That's one of the mysteries of the game. So they just kind of awaken somewhere wearing, like, a diaper and a name tag. And as full-grown adults. So there's no baby Tizzants.
Is there anyone still in charge of the Primordial Soup Chick?
There is, but that has not been divulged yet.
I see.
So that'll probably be the subject of some big adventure set or something.
Okay.
Because it's one of the major mysteries of the world.
Okay.
There have been hints. I've given some hints in the whole hole. There's a few hints as to the true nature of the Primordial Soup Kitchen.
Okay.
But I don't think I've divulged enough to really give it away yet.
Well, I won't make you spill your juicy secrets.
Yeah, well, I don't even have the juicy secrets completely thought out yet. Although the original Lowlife rule book, which came out in 2006, the adventure in there does have some stuff about the Primordial Soup Kitchen, but there's some stuff that will happen in this next adventure. It won't, make that obsolete, but it will explain some of the stuff that happened there in a little more detail. And maybe change a few things. It won't change what happened in the adventure. It will just change what you think happened.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Like something happened there,
I got you.
And you thought that's, I understand this mystery, and then you'll find out, oh, wait, I was wrong.
It was really this other way.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, all right, so I think we got a little bit onto the Primordial Soup Kitchen, which is an interesting place.
But
we're going to talk about countries and
countries. Yeah. Okay. Well, like I said, the whole the first edition. There's going to be a whole bunch of editions. The first one was about Keister Island.
Okay.
If you look at the map of Oith, you'll recognize that it used to be Earth, but millions of things have happened to it, and the poles shifted, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So Keister Island is called Keister Island because it is home to the Keister of God.
Okay.
The Keister of God is a gigantic hole in the ground, like hundreds of yorts across. And
Yorks?
Yort.
Yorts.
Every unit of measure in Lowlife is called a yort.
A yort.
Yeah,
Okay.
Y-O-R-T. Like, you're about 4 yorts tall, and I'm about 9 yorts tall. This table is maybe 3.1 yorts tall.
I see.
And
I think I'm noticing a pattern in these
It's all
yorts.
contextual. See, well, okay, here's the story of Yort.
Okay.
Long ago, all the different countries of the world had their own units of measure.
Right.
The Flumian Schlode might have been equal to 3.1, I don't know.
Tarnoggles.
What, Tarnoggles from the Dingdom of the Dong or something like
Right.
that. So it made trade really hard.
Okay.
Once the countries and the different nations and different peoples of the world decided to start trading with each other, they needed something more uniform.
Okay, makes sense.
So they had this big party, and they're like, hey, let's have a party, and we'll have a contest of some sort and figure out what we're going to call the units of measure.
Okay.
Right? But it's not fair if the guys from Flume, the Keistermeister, he might say, but the Ding of the Dong shouldn't get to decide,
Yeah.
Or, the Emperor of Greece. Greece is a little different than the Greece we're familiar with.
Okay.
But anyway, there's a whole bunch of countries. And they had to figure out why, who gets to decide. So they had a huge circuspy nut eating contest.
Okay.
Circuspy nuts are these little puffy orange peanut-like things that grow on trees.
Okay.
They're a delicatrocity.
Delicatrocity.
They're so horribly vile.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can keep them down, they count as like a whole day's worth of food.
Okay.
So they're good for traveling and stuff. But they're horrible.
Okay.
And disgusting.
But they fill you up for a day's worth of stuff. So.
Exactly. And they give you much nutrition for a whole day. So they're, got to pack light. They're good for
And some D&D players would complain about trail rations.
Right, exactly. And there's a city called Circuspy where these things are grown, and the people there love them, and that's pretty much all they eat, and they're all mutated and stuff from overdosing on them. But anyway, they had a Circuspy nut eating contest. They decided, just because they needed some way to determine who got to decide what the units of measure were. They would have this contest. Whoever ate the most Circuspy nuts without puking would be in charge of the Bureau of Weights and Measures or whatever, and get to decide the units for everything.
Okay.
So this guy who won was a little Bodil. A Bodil is a being of dubious lineage.
Okay.
They're possibly what humans devolved into over the gazillions of years.
Okay.
They're all different, weird creatures. So anyway, Yort was the name of the guy who won.
Okay.
He had a huge appetite, and he kept a whole bunch of Circuspy nuts down, but he wasn't very imaginative, and he had a huge ego. So he just
named it after himself.
He was like, screw it, every unit of measure is now called the Yort.
Okay.
So you're measuring height, distance, weight, time, everything is called, well, they still use like years for time and stuff.
Okay.
But everything is called a Yort, but there's no real definition for how big a Yort is.
So it's like everybody just kept their unit of measure. They just called them all Yorts.
Exactly. Well, kind of, yeah. But Yort himself has a thing called the Yort stick, which is this giant stick with increments marked on it.
Okay.
But they're kind of haphazard and random. So he leads a religion, actually, called the Yortians, which is mostly him and his mom worshiping him. But they wander around the world.
Okay.
And they have been doing this for a couple centuries, or a couple Yorts, measuring things and just like writing or painting a number on them. So you'd be walking down the street and like that wall might have a 5 on it, and that garbage can might say 3.6 on it or something. Supposedly that's how many Yorts it is.
Okay.
But it doesn't indicate if it's weighed that much or if it's that tall or
it's
whatever.
just a number.
Yeah.
That is that many Yorts.
So it makes it fun. So it actually, when you're playing the role-playing game, it makes it a lot of fun because of the confusion.
Yeah.
Because
like, so how far away is that?
3 Yorts or so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I walk over there. Okay, I'll let you know when you get there.
Right. Or Yorts later. Yeah. But, I mean, when you're using miniatures and stuff, you actually have inches marked out. Right. Sort of thing. But for the flavor of the game, it's a lot of fun to just use Yorts.
Oh, you don't need miniatures. It will make it even better.
We do have a line of Lowlife miniatures.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Sure do. You asked me a question about an hour ago, and I haven't answered it yet.
But you did mention, like, I asked about kingdoms and royalty, but you did mention some, the Ding of the Dong, the Emperor of Greece.
Yeah, the Dingdom of the Dong, Horace Morris. He's, well, there's a whole bunch of different types of cream fillings. Okay. Twinks are the normal kind that look like Twinkies. And they're the ones that I put everywhere. They like, go all over the world. Mm-hmm. But the Dingdom of the Dong is like the cream fillion homeland.
Okay.
And the cream fillions in general are pretty xenophobic. Mm-hmm. The Twinks are the least xenophobic in general, but the other types don't like to mix with the other peeps very much, so they kind of keep to the Dingdom of the Dong. So when I do the version of the whole that focuses on the Dingdom of the Dong, there'll be a whole bunch of new types of cream fillions introduced, like ones based on ho-hos and zingers and and stuff like that. But, you know, the joke that everyone always talks about is that Twinkies last forever. Mm-hmm. Which is why they're still around in Lowlife. Right. You don't usually hear people making a joke about ding-dongs lasting forever or zingers. It's Twinkies.
Now, how many Yorts tall are cream fillions average?
I would say about 5.
About 5 Yorts?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it depends on, you know, who you're asking.
Okay.
Because the only one that really knows how big a Yort is Yort. And, you know, there must be something to the religion based on him because he's been around for a couple hundred years and hasn't aged or died. So there's that to think about.
All right. Well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, okay. Then, so we know there's some Dingdom of the Dong.
There's the Dingdom of the Dong.
There's Greece, who has an emperor. And you mentioned another one.
There's the Gubernator of Ug.
The Gubernator of Ug.
There's, well, the Keistermeister is the boss of the city of Flume and most of Keister Island.
Okay. I was about to ask.
Yeah. I was explaining what the Keister of God was.
Right.
Man, we're all like man all over the place.
It seems appropriate to this. So the big hole on Keister Island is known as the Keister of God.
And, I mean, it takes up... When you look at the map, you know, you'll notice, being the brilliant geographer that you are...
Oh, indeed.
That Keister Island was once Greenland.
Okay.
But now it's, like, equatorial on the map.
Okay.
And there's a giant hole that takes up most of it. That hole is like a bottomless cup of coffee. Like, it goes all the way down into the Oith. And the ocean comes in over the sides. The big drink.
Oh, really? Okay.
The ocean is called the big drink. It comes in over the sides in various places.
Okay.
And, like, sulfurous gas comes up from below. if you're trying to make it make sense scientifically, maybe it's going down, there's like magma down there and the ocean water's steaming out. But no one knows what's down there. There have been a lot of expeditions sent down there.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. So no one's tried to...
but no one so far has come back from down there and explained what's down there.
Okay.
There are a lot of theories that it's, an entrance into the underwear or the nether regions. The nether regions is like hell. That's where the contaminants come from and various other things. The underwear is like the Underdark.
Gotcha.
It's like the subterranean realm. So there have been tons of expeditions going down there. Throughout the centuries, the Keistermeisters have sent people down there, and so far they haven't learned very much.
Okay.
But there's yet another
they rarely come
adventure, adventure hook. We could have a big expedition into the Keister. Yeah.
I was going to say, speaking of adventures... so we have an idea of like what some of the places are like, what some of the people are like, and how the logic in this world works. What if players were to pick up the main book, which is called the main game book?
Well, actually, there's a new one coming out this year.
Okay.
New version of it.
Okay.
The original one came out in 2006. It's called Lowlife: The Rise of the Lowly. It uses Savage Worlds rules system.
Oh, okay.
It's still available, but there's only maybe 50 copies left that aren't snatched up by somebody.
Okay.
There's a new version. Completely new writing, completely new art, full color, hardbound.
New system, or still using Savage Worlds?
Still using Savage Worlds, although we're releasing rules for Pathfinder and for Fate Core.
Okay.
But the book itself uses Savage Worlds.
Okay.
The main reason for that is because the original book was Savage Worlds, and it was an official Savage setting that Pinnacle put out, Great White Games. So, out of loyalty to them, and because I like the system, and because it's a lot easier to write for than any other system I've met.
I enjoy Savage Worlds. I think it's a very good.
I mean, and just as far as putting out a book, it's very rules light. So it's easy
very open
to use appendices at the back to put the rules in. If you're doing Pathfinder, which I'm sure is a great game too, it's just then I've got to write an entire book of just like spells.
Right.
So
everything needs to be laid out. For them.
So that is something we're working on.
Okay.
But the actual printed book so far is Savage Worlds. That should be out in August.
Okay. And it's going to be called. Is going to be called different from the previous?
Well, the original one was Lowlife: The Rise of the Lowly.
Okay.
And then where it says like by Andy Hopp, it says Dredged from the Muck by Andy Hopp.
Okay.
So this one, it just says Redredged from the Muck by Andy Hopp. So it's the same. Like it didn't change much.
So it's like a new edition, but with some
new edition, right? It's the old one's not obsolete.
Yeah.
You still play with the old one. It's just this one is updated for updated Savage Worlds rules.
Okay.
It's all new writing.
Okay.
But there isn't much that, negates stuff from before.
So if you got both books, you would actually have more, you'd actually have more background information.
Exactly. And there are different adventures in the book. So, so the first book has different adventures than the new book. So, it's definitely worth having both.
Oh, yeah.
And this one, like I said, is all new art, new full-color art.
Okay.
The old one wasn't full-color. It was black and white ink drawings that were sepia-toned.
Oh, so this one's full color.
All full color. It's going to be about 300 pages, hardbound. And I've been working really hard on it, so buy it.
Yeah, go for it. What I was getting at before is, so we know the name of the main book is
Lowlife: The Rise of the Lowly.
Lowlife:
Redredged from the Muck. Yes.
Redredged from the Muck, yes. All right, now, in Redredged from the Muck, for, if a group were to pick this up and play it, for the players... you don't necessarily have to walk us through all of character creation, but what sort of people could they be, and what sort of adventures would they expect to go on?
Okay, well, one thing I've never really cared for about just about every, not just game, but every genre in existence, is that races of organisms, which really aren't races, they're species, but they all are the same. Like in Star Trek, like almost every Klingon is warlike and obsessed with honor, and every Ferengi is greedy, and every elf is like a woodland fairy dude floating around that's good with a sword and a bow for some reason.
Typically stuck.
And dwarves are all like drunken misogynists or whatever. So
drunken misogynist.
Whatever. So I make a point of saying that these are just basic guidelines in the book. It is possible, however unlikely, to have a Creamfillian who's a humanitarian.
Okay.
Even though typically Creamfillians hate any reference to
anything that would make them more compelling.
Right. So, but you can do it. So there's no rule that says your character has to be like this. But I'll run down a few of the player character races. Creamfillians we've talked about. They evolve from Twinkies. They're basically humanoid Twinkies. The thing about them is their spongy flesh absorbs all kinds of toxins and pollutants and stuff from the atmosphere. Because the planet is just a total wreck.
Right.
So they have some special powers, like they, if any animal bites them, or creature bites them, it has to make a vigor roll in order to bite them again.
Okay.
Because they taste so bad. So after the first bite.
Tastes
and then
awful.
they have an ability called twinking, which, in twinking in games is when people, like, carry way more stuff than they're supposed to carry.
Right.
So creamphilians can carry, like, 8 times a normal load without being burdened by it. And things like that. Then some of the names, I just made simplified names because there was no reason, to call croaches, for example, which evolved from cockroaches. I could have made up some crazy, like, Glock or something like that,
right.
But it didn't seem necessary for something like this.
So name Ted?
Well, yeah. So there are croaches, which evolved from cockroaches.
Right.
There are worms, which it's more like worm, like with a derisive sneer.
Oh, okay.
It's W-E-R-M.
So
they evolved from worms, but there's a lot of different kinds of them. Like any kind of worm you know of could have evolved into a worm.
Okay.
So, like, for example, there's a religion of worms called the Returners from Whence We Came.
Okay.
And when we were playing Dementalism, that guy Everlasting Woznolop, he's one of those. He had that little sign that said "Go Home," and the O's on "Going Home" were made out of little buttholes. Yeah. So the reason for that is, the Returners evolved. Their ancestors were parasitic intestinal worms.
Okay.
See.
Okay.
So,
all right.
according to the tenets of their religion, you can't play earthworm-based ones, but these guys evolved from parasitic worms.
Okay.
Or at least that's what they believe.
Okay.
So they believe in reincarnation as part of their religion. The only way they can truly die is if they're inside of the intestines or the bones of some creature.
Okay.
Or they believe that they can die by falling into the Keister of God, because that's a metaphorical butt.
Right.
So there was one that tried to commit suicide by having himself baked into a loaf of buns, like bread at a bakery.
Gotcha.
And that did not work.
Okay.
So anyway, if they die elsewhere other than in a butt or an intestines, then they come back.
Oh, okay.
So they get resurrected or reincarnated.
Do they keep their memories?
Sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, pretty much all the time they do. But so that's another one of the religions, the Returners from Whence They Came. There's a lot of religions that are based on the worship of something, but then there are also religions that are just like philosophies.
Okay.
And I know we're just rambling all over the place here.
Well, we're keeping somewhat too.
One of the Zazz-waggling types you can be is a holy roller.
Now, Zazz-waggling...
Zazz-wagglers are magic users.
Right.
There's a whole bunch of different types of Zazz-wagglers.
Okay.
You were asking me about the player character species.
Right.
We'll get to more of those. But Zazz-wagglers are magic users. And
that's the type of person you can be.
Yeah. So holy rollers are one type you can be, and they're like clerics, priests. But what they do is they kind of intercede with the gods. Instead of just casting spells, they ask for favors. So the god will either give them a solid or a snub. If a god does you a solid, then it gives you, whatever spell you're trying to do.
Right.
If it snubs you, then bad stuff can happen to you.
Okay.
Like if you're not following your faith properly.
Okay, yeah.
And it depends on what your religion is. Like there's a religion called the Bottom Liners, and they worship money and wealth. Not like whoever, not like I'm so rich so I'm awesome. They actually believe that wealth is God. And there's a whole philosophy behind it that's explained in the whole.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it kind of comes down to whoever has the most money has the most power.
Okay.
And what has more money than money is kind of how their basic philosophy is. So
all of wealth is a god.
Something like that, yeah. There's a lot more to it. They have the what is it called? The Vault of Revenuvial Affluence or something like that is their main church. And so there's a list of like sins in their religion and virtues, and this is what Holy Crap has in it. Virtues and sins for each of the not even the major religions, but all the religions that I've invented so far are in there. So, like, if a bottom liner is charitable, that's considered a sin. Like, if he tips more than 10% at a restaurant, that's a sin.
Okay.
Stuff like that. So then when he calls upon money to give him a spell or something, he might get snubbed because he was charitable earlier. So it's a role-playing tool also.
Okay.
Like, it helps you keep your character focused on the faith
So,
that they
all right. So if you're a bottom liner,
Yeah.
you like hoard money. You never want to.
Right, and I
spend
mean,
it if you
would
don't
do
have to.
well. It's not even that. Like ostentatious displays of wealth are good.
Okay, so
Like commissioning a statue of yourself that costs 10 billion clams is a great way to spend money.
which you'll have your twinkfillion, your
creamfillion.
creamfillion carry around for
Exactly.
you. So, okay.
Right. So like spending a city's ransom on like a dinner, that's awesome as long as it's not tipping that money.
Right.
Like you just want to tip the proper amount.
Okay, so
And bribery and
showing
stuff is
how
fine.
rich you are is just as important.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, but it's got to be for selfish reasons.
Now, as a quick aside, before we get back to talking about peoples, now in this religion of the bottom liners, because I find this interesting, I kind of like this a lot actually. Now I get acquiring wealth and showing how rich you are. Now, if you don't have wealth, is it also considered a good thing to pretend that you're wealthy?
That's a very good question, and I think that would be up to the individual.
Okay.
As far as getting the spells, the Zazz, there must be some god somewhere.
Right.
God is GAWD in life, but there's got to be some being somewhere or some universal force that's giving you the power.
Right.
Right. So even though money itself might not be like sitting up on Mount Olympus
literal
on a
god.
throne, there's someone taking interest in what you're doing. It's like with the Jemima's witnesses. The Creamfillians, they don't worship anything in this religion. They just espouse hatred for humans.
Okay.
So they have these amber glass bottles that represent a human that they shatter as part of their sacrificing and stuff like that.
Okay.
They defile humanitarian temples and things of that nature. And by doing that, it shows their faith. And some fundamental being is giving them their power. But even though they're not directly worshiping,
Being, or is it like the floating belief in whatever
well,
it is? Like
in the whole hole, the one that's already out, Keister Island,
Uh-huh.
there's a whole section that deals with the fundaments. Fundament is also a euphemism for butt. See? The fundaments are. Well, I gotta make sure I remember how to do this is all correct, but it basically deals with the origins of the universe.
Okay.
And how everything came to be.
Okay.
And there are things called excrescences, which are I got to make sure I'm saying this right. Excrescences are like things that govern or represent various aspects of the universe.
Okay.
So like contaminants, they're all about filth and disease and stuff. So they're like the universal fundamental representation of filth and disease. They came into being because the universe was bored. The universe was nothing to start with, right?
Yeah.
Eventually it got bored of being nothing, so it started having ideas. And then these ideas eventually formed these excrescences, which then formed actual physical substance. There's a whole chapter about it in the book.
Okay. All right.
But, so a lot of people believe that the gods are just individual fundaments.
Okay.
So they, like if you say there's some deity somewhere, some god that represents hatred of the human race.
Okay.
Okay. And that's who's giving the Jemima's witnesses their power.
Okay.
Even though no one knows who this thing is or what it is or anything.
It's a fundament.
Right. It's its own thing somewhere. And just because we don't know about it doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Okay. All
So,
right. Yeah.
Yeah. So that explains why the religions that aren't actually worshing anything
So
still
it means there could be
get
like
sense.
any number of fundaments, right?
Right. Exactly.
Okay.
And I mean the fundaments that the fundamentals. The fundamentals are the things that govern the various fundaments. The fundamentals that represent magic are called hokai, the hocuses.
Okay.
So hocus pokers are what you call like normal wizard type magic users. We're shaking the table.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's pretty cool. We're probably getting special effects. Oh, special effects.
It's got a little bit of a stabilizer.
Yeah, so hocus pokers are another type of magic user.
Right.
And then there's contaminators. Contaminators deal with the contaminants. So they can summon contaminants, which are like fundamental spirits of filth, decay, and grossness.
Okay.
There's all different types of them, like millions of different ones, but they're different like power levels for them that you can summon based on how powerful you are as a Contaminator. You can also make what are called Contaminatronic minions, which are kind of like golems or robots or something that use a Contaminator bound within them, or Containment bound within them to power themselves.
Okay.
So, that's one of the powers that Contaminators have that nobody else has.
A Contaminator Zazzwaggler.
Yes, a Contaminator.
Contaminator.
It's a combination of contaminate and animate. So
Contaminator.
Contaminator. I can't even say the real word anymore. Contaminators. Yeah. So they're another type of Zazzwaggler, but they're usually kind of filthy and broken in various ways because of the forces they deal with. The new book, the new core rule book, introduces 2 new types of Zazzwagglers.
Okay.
Which are Giggity Giggers.
Giggity Giggers, all right.
Giggity Giggers existed in the original book, but it was just an edge you could get. Now they're a whole arcane background that allows you access to a whole bunch of different powers.
And what is a Giggity?
Oh, well, a Giggity also works for the Primordial Soup Kitchen, if the rumors are to be believed. They're the organisms that wander around collecting those traits that we talked about earlier when we talked about Tizzens. So a Giggity is a little kind of candy corn-shaped organism that floats around in the air. It's got big floppy ears that act like wings. That's like their base form.
Okay.
But anytime they touch an organism, they absorb a trait from that organism.
Okay.
So if it touched you, it might get your devastating good looks, or it might get your earring, or it might get your love of tacos, or it might get your.
So it might get a personality trait.
It could get a personality trait. It might get a bit. It might get the combination to your high school locker. It could get your shoe size. It could get any trait at all. And the new book has an entire 4-page long chart of probably 100,000 different combinations of traits you can get. And some of them are knowledge. Some of them are psychological disorders. You could get an obsession with pancakes, or something like that. But what Giggity Giggers do is they can catch Giggities and use their Zazz to transfer the traits that the Giggities have taken onto themselves.
Okay.
See, so there's different powers they have access to, but that's one of them, which is just called gigging. So say for example, you're a guard at some place, and there's a trap I've got to get by, and the secret combination to the trap. I could send a Giggity to you. The Giggity could touch you and gain that information, then come back to me, and I could use my magic to get it from the Giggity.
Okay.
See, or say there's a big monster with a big horn on its head, and I'm like, oh, that's a badass horn. I'd get all the chicks if I had a horn like that. Something like that. Then I could send the Giggity, get the horn, come back to me. It doesn't disappear from the creature that has in the first
It just
acquires it, right?
Okay.
So that's what Giggity Giggers do. And they have other powers, too. They can...
Interesting.
There's one called the hookup, this power, where you can get a Giggity and another person. And say there's a Giggity over there with, a perfect smile. And I'm like, man... I wish I had a perfect smile. Yeah, so you can take the power from the Giggity and give it to me. That's what the hookup does. It allows you to transfer it to somebody else.
This is going to come out in the new.
This is all in the new book.
Okay.
Yep. The other new type of Zazzwaggler is called the Danged Wrangler. And Danged Wranglers are like necromancers. They deal with creatures of the danged, which are the undead. And they have typical kind of necromancer powers, but there's a lot of fun ones they can do. You can create what's called a... Geez, what are they called? I don't even remember what they're called. But you can get a butler, an undead butler that follows you around.
A danged butler.
Yeah. I can't remember what they're called. I don't know.
Undanged butler.
Yeah, undanged. So there's a whole bunch of cool powers that Danged Wranglers can get.
Okay, so... all right. Wait, so you could be a Zazzwaggler.
Zazzwaggler is the overall encompassing term that covers all the magic.
So, all right, so you could be a Zazzwaggler.
Right.
What if you're not a Zazzwaggler? What other
Well, the way
the rules work,
there's no classes so much. There's just a lot of edges you can choose from, which are skills and jobs.
And Zazzwaggling
I introduced something new in Lowlife that I haven't seen in other Savage World stuff yet, which are called occupational edges. They have professional edges before. But what these are is everybody gets one for free to start the game, which is basically what your job is. So there's everything in there. You can be a pimp. You got to be able to be a pimp. And along with the pimps, we also have strumples. So a strumple is pretty obvious what that might be. Someone who works for a pimp. And you can, they have special powers and abilities that go along with that.
Now, wait, I'm sorry. I have to interrupt you because an idea just occurred to me and I want to know if it will fit. Now, can you have multiple professional edges?
Yes.
Okay. So, can you, for example, be a pimp?
Yes.
Or can you be a giggity-gigger pimp?
Sure.
And pimp out your giggities?
Yeah, absolutely. You could. You could definitely do that. In fact, there's a character in the whole hole, Pandalope the Panderer, who's a Tizant, and there's a miniature of him, actually. There's actually 2 pimp miniatures already. We have like 20 miniatures done so far, and 2 of them are pimps.
Okay.
There's one named Sunny Hindquarters, who's a Smelth. We haven't gotten to Smelths yet. But anyway, he's got a whole bunch of Strumples working for him. And there's one, I'm trying to remember the names of them. There's one named Amanuensis the Septipod. I thought Amanuensis was an awesome name for a Strumple. Do you know what an Amanuensis is?
No.
It's basically someone who acts as your hands in real life, like a butler or a ghost rider.
Interesting.
A ghost writer.
Right.
Basically someone who does your dishes for you. Anyone who does the work of your hands. So I thought it was a perfect name for a Strumple.
That's funny.
Yeah,
that is funny.
But you were asking about giggity gigger pimps, and of course you could do that. You could pimp out your giggities. But now there are one of the powers of a giggity gigger is to have a giggity do what you want it to.
Right.
So they don't do that by nature.
Right.
You'd have to be able to control them somehow. But you might be able to convince them. Some of them are intelligent. So who knows?
All right. Okay. So you got. All right. So you could take.
There's all kinds.
You could be a Zazz Wagler. You could be like a pimp. You could be like.
Yeah, but
whatever
and each of those edges gives you certain bonuses and stuff. Like
right.
Like for example, a pimp starts with a stable of Strumples, which are like NPCs that go with you, and they do the things Strumples do.
Right.
The power that a Strumple has is he or she gets a bonus to persuasion rolls made, like in the bedroom. So they're good at like tricking people into giving them information and stuff, basically by sleeping with them.
Let me say, now this sounds like a legitimate question here. Is there a lot of crossbreeding in this
that
world?
is addressed. That is more of a cultural thing. There isn't. You can't have like a smell.
So like the creamphillians or like the other type of creamphillians might not be so much into that, but
well, among species, yeah, you could have creamphillians breeding with each other, different types of creamphillians, because they're subspecies of the same species.
But a creamphillian and a croach,
you couldn't do that without like magical intervention. There'd probably be a way to do it using some Zazz waggling.
Yeah,
but there are cultures and religions that marry in between each other.
Okay,
like the Fungish, which is a type of religion based on the worship of the Moss Boss, who basically extol the virtues of all things fungal. Yeah.
Okay.
But there's a pretty deep philosophy behind all the religions. I try to make them really make sense.
Yeah,
it's not just like mushrooms are cool, so we worship mushrooms.
Right.
It's all about the whole dual substance of fungus, where it represents both fecundity and birth, in that they're everywhere, but they also eat dead matter and decay, so they have the whole circle of life thing going for them. And, they cause diseases, but they also cure diseases. So there's a lot of stuff going on with fungus.
Okay.
But the Fungish worship the Moss Boss. I'm drooling.
Also seems appropriate for the setting.
Yeah. So, and part of their religion espouses like fecundity and having a lot of children and stuff like that.
Right.
So, they encourage interbreeding. And they encourage intermarriage. So they have like plural marriage. Like they'll have huge families, like one
bunch of wives and husbands.
Yeah, and they all live together, and it's
like a communal marriage,
exactly.
Yeah.
And and they encourage marriage amongst different genders and stuff too. Even if you can't have children, it's more just about the community of it and everyone raising each other's children.
It's with like the philosophy and stuff,
right? So yeah, I try. A lot of times people look at Lowlife on the surface without reading anything or actually hearing anything about it, except that it's possible to play poop as a player character, and then they're immediately turned off like it's for kindergartners.
Right.
And that's not the case at all.
Yeah, but they don't.
In fact, when the original Lowlife came out, before it came out, Shane Hensley, who was the publisher, he made an announcement about it, and he was like, "Have you ever wanted to play Living Poop or something like that?" Which is true. You can do that in the game.
Yeah.
But there were certain people that heard that and immediately were turned off. And they were
Right,
like, this
'cause
is
of
for
that.
kindergartners, this is so stupid. Then when the book finally came out, I got so many letters of apology, the saying, well, I had no idea that it was so, such a smart game.
Yeah.
We just thought it was completely puerile.
Well, yeah, it's definitely. I think like I can understand where those people were coming from. Like on the surface, if they just look at it, it's just going to seem like just silly.
Right.
But just hearing you talk about it, just like really, it's stuff that all gamers are used to. It's just like the terms have changed, and there is a level of silliness to it. But
It was definitely silly.
its own purpose.
Here's, in my opinion,
intentional.
the reason it works is, I'm sorry, I keep shaking your camera, but deal with it. It's absolutely absurd and ridiculous.
Yeah.
The characters in the game are absurd and ridiculous. But the reason it works is because they don't realize they're absurd and ridiculous. To them, this is how the world is supposed to be, and they take it seriously.
Right.
So even though you're playing a humanoid cockroach that uses barbecue tongs as a weapon and, has a Kiss the Cook apron as armor or whatever, that's, to him, that's how badass warriors are. It's so to him, in context, he's a badass. He's not a goofy, cartoon.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's ridiculous, but it doesn't realize it's
all in
ridiculous.
context.
Yeah. So I think that's why it works. Plus, I mean, I really tried to inject a lot of philosophy and a lot of intelligence into it.
Like I said, I really do like the bottom liners.
Thank you.
I think that's
I can't really claim credit for the concept of the bottom liners.
Right.
Somebody, I think it was Tim Hannon, but if I'm wrong, I apologize, gave me the idea for someone who worshipped money, and I took it from there. But, yeah, I mean, and someone else came up with the name Creamfillion, too. But I thought it was awesome. And you made it up for me to use. It wasn't like I stole it from somewhere else.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, let's rope that back to the
different types of races.
Because so far we have the Creamfillions, which there will be more types of eventually.
Tizzens.
The Tizzens.
And in the new book,
Croaches.
Croaches, we talked about worms.
Worms.
Worms. Tizzens, there's a new type called taints.
Taints.
Okay. Yeah. You know what I'm talking about. Taints are Tizzens that also have a vegetable component.
Interesting.
Yeah. So you can have them, with animal and plant mixed together.
This could be like...
You could have like cantaloupe dandelion, and he would be part
Cantaloupe.
cantaloupe, part dandelion, and part lion, all mixed together. Something like that.
Is there a character like that, or did you come up with that off the top of your head?
Not telling. But there's a ton of them like that.
Okay.
And there's a city in the whole hole called Over There.
In the whole on Keister Island.
Okay, it's on Keister Island.
Okay.
Right near the Badunkabite.
Badunkabite?
The Badunkabite is a little inlet that leads to the Keister of God.
Okay.
Anyway, the city of Over There is built inside of a giant snail shell that came up from the ocean, from the big drink. But like a huge, like city-sized shell. And all the different, like the proto-conch and various parts of the shell are different neighborhoods and stuff.
Sure.
But anyway, the way Over There works is it's kind of like a refuge, like a sanctuary for Tizzens.
Okay.
Because Tizzens are not very common. And because they're made out of extinct animals, everyone else is intensely curious of them. So anywhere they go, they're constantly harassed by people asking questions and stuff like that, and wanting to prod them and poke them and look at them with magnifying glasses and things. So this is kind of like a sanctuary for them.
Okay.
And this was a fun section for me to write because the names of all the Tizzens are like combinations of the animals all scrambled together. They can rename themselves after that if they want to, but when they're born, they have a name tag on that lists the animals combined together. It doesn't just say like lion, elephant, dog. It would be like
dog.
Yeah, right, exactly. So anyway, that was a fun one to write because I just had to come up with a whole bunch of Tizzent names and try not to repeat things.
Right.
And I tried to.
Did you have to keep a separate list of all the names you already used?
Well, kind of. I just wanted to make sure that I was using animals that most people would have heard of. So on my website at muthaoithcreations.com, there is a Tizzent name generator that will randomly generate Tizzent names for you, and some of them are like 1,000 letters long.
What I'm liking about this, can you play a Tizzent?
Yeah.
Okay, what I'm liking about these Tizzents is that you can have a Tizzent that is, you have two different Tizzants that are made of the same animals, but their names will be completely different because they have completely different
and they would look completely different too. Yeah, no Tizzant they can't reproduce.
Right.
So that's one of the other mysteries. It's most people think they have something to do with the Primordial Soup kitchen, but no one knows for sure. So no one knows exactly where Tizzants come from. Even Tizzants don't know.
Okay. They just
come into
because they just wake up somewhere.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And if there are baby Tizzants, no one knows where they are or anything like that, and none of them remember being a baby.
Okay. So, all right, just to recap: creamphillians, croaches, worms, Tizzants. I think we mentioned another one.
Well, one of the cataclysms that happened during the time of the Flush is that a rift was opened between Oith and the magical realm of Middle Oith.
Okay.
It's stupid, but it's a way
Middle
to get...
Oith, gotcha.
I needed to get Smelves and Horks into the mix.
Smelves and Horks, all right.
Smelves and Horks. And then the gate was quickly shut in disgust after they came over.
In disgust.
I needed to find a way to introduce magic back into the world. Because Oith is Earth, I still want it to make sense. I didn't want to be like, okay, yeah, we just forgot how to use magic, and now we know again. I wanted there to be a reason for it. So some magic came over from Middle Oith, and along with that were the Smelves, which are basically like giant green Smurfs with really big noses. Okay. They're really good at smell casting, which is another type of Zazz waggling.
Okay.
Smell casting, actually, there's an entire chapter about smell casting in the whole hole that lays down everything about like the 41 essential odors, and I know we're getting off track again, but
that's okay. Well, we're talking about the Smelves, right?
Right. Okay. So Smelves are good smell casters because they have big noses and good sense of smell. Smell casters, they are able to coalesce the various essential odors of the universe.
Okay. Essential odors.
What the essential odors are the 41 scents from which all other smells arise. They're like the basic ingredients.
Okay.
So, you can take... Well, the 41 essential odors are like the atoms of smell.
Gotcha.
Right? Okay. Then those form things called the smellaments. Smellaments are combinations of essential odors. Combinations of smellaments are called smell-a-medleys. Okay. Some smell-a-medleys, some mixtures of these essential odors, carry magic with them.
Okay.
They're able to do stuff. Smellcasters know the recipe.
Okay.
That's basically what it comes down to. So, you have smellaments, smell-a-medleys, and what they coalesce the volatile scents of the smell-a-medleys into things called reeks. And a reek is basically like a potion that you inhale rather than drink.
Okay, sure.
So you smell them rather than drink them. So they're useless against creatures that don't have noses or any other way to smell.
Okay.
And it's fun because you can like hurl them into the midst of your enemies and they break apart, and anyone who smells them is affected by them.
Okay.
Or if they're good for you, you can just smell them yourself or something. But that's another way to use Zazz in the game. And other races or species can be smell casters as well. It's just smells are good at it because they have really big noses.
Okay, good.
All right. So
and
Horks.
Okay.
Horks are large, bulky, sort of warlike, usually, snot-covered beasts.
Okay.
And they're all about hating on the smells. So their main island is called Agog, and Agog City is the main city on Agog.
Okay.
And like almost every building there, like every bar or tavern or interior decorating place or whatever, is all about dead smells.
Dead smells.
Like slavery is legal there, so they have. Well, actually, everything is legal in Agog. So they're all about torturing smells, and one of the major Hork religions is called the Santanists. Okay, Santanists worship this ancient human god called the Santa, and he is all about burglary and enslaving smells and socks for some reason. So so Santanists, thanks. Santanism is big among the.
All right, wait. So would a Santanist, holy roller, walk around wearing a big red hat with a puffball?
Well, usually it'd probably have like a mace head or something like that instead of a puffball. I have a few pictures of them, but they're introduced more in Holy Crap, which will be out next year.
Okay.
Not Holy Crap, but Holy Crap.
Holy crap!
Yeah, stuff that's holy. Crap that's holy. Anyway, so yeah, Santanists are all about enslaving smells and breaking into people's houses and stuff like that. So it's perfect for the Orcs.
Like
Thanks. And that's Orcs. Not all of them are evil,
Right.
but they're obviously based on Orcs.
Right.
So they're that sort of character.
Yeah, I mentioned in a previous episode, you don't design for the exception. Players will always want to be the exception. That's between a game master and player. Don't worry about that.
Exactly. Then there are Bodals, which we mentioned earlier when we talked about York. Bodals are all different.
Mm-hmm.
They all have some traits in common, but generally they're what humans devolved into. But that may or may not be true. They believe that that's true, so that's kind of their cultural identity. But they all, like I said, they're all different, but they're all vaguely. Well, they usually have some eyes and noses and things. But, their face could be on upside down.
Okay.
Or, they could have a mustache where their eyebrows should be.
I kind of imagine them as being short, squat little things.
Some of them are short and squat. Some are huge. They're all different. Some don't have bones and are just like a... you could have one that's just like a doormat and has to be carried around and worn as a kid by another player. Or something like that. The Bodals are ones... Bodals and Tizzants are... Every one of them is completely unique. They have a different cultural identity. Mm-hmm. Like a Bodal might say, I'm a Bodal, therefore I'm unique. And a Tizzant might say, I'm a Tizzant, and Tizzants are unique. It's a little bit of a different line there that they cross in their own mind. Mm-hmm. But it comes down to they all have a really innate sense of individuality. Okay. And that kind of carries into whatever they do. Okay. The Bodals a little less so than the Tizzants because Bodals have that cultural, we descended from humans sort of thing going on. Okay. But physically, they're all different. Okay. So if you're the kind of person that likes to play something really unique and to design what your character looks like and things like they can have multiple limbs, they can have multiple eyes on the back of their head, they can breathe water, whatever, anything you want. Then the other ones are UFOs. UFOs, O-O-F-O. They descended from ancient aliens that were stranded on Oith during the time of the Slush. So they're not aliens; they're just descended from aliens. They don't have any way to get into space or get contact their ancestors. Right, but they have access to the other last type of Zazz waggling. I think that's the last one, called dementalism. Okay. Dementalism is psychic powers, and UFOs are the only ones that have it. Okay. There are some monsters that have it, but UFOs are the only player characters that have it. Okay. And they can, read minds and levitate stuff. They have the glowy finger of love. They can heal people with their glowy finger. Stuff like that. And those are abilities they can choose from. They don't all have it. Piles are another one. Okay. Piles are those magically animated piles of poop that we talked about earlier. They're not just poop, though. They're any type of filth or trash or
so it could be like pile of garbage.
Toxic waste, garbage.
You're like that one Pokemon.
Nuclear waste. Nuclear waste, actually. It's pronounced nuclear in Lowlife. Because so many people pronounce it that way anyway. That's now the accepted pronunciation in Lowlife anyway. So piles are actually a byproduct of contamination gone wrong. So there's a chance anytime a contaminator tries to build a minion or use its magic that it can go wrong in some way and create from the filth an actual living sentient organism. Okay. And that's what a pile is. So yes, you can play as living poop, but it's more like you're this magically animated...
It doesn't even have to be poop. It could just be like you're a pile of spare parts or something.
Yeah, exactly. Any kind of trash or goop. They're not usually made out of solid chunks of things, as far as like garbage. Yeah. It's more like organic. Okay. Right. So you couldn't be like a pile of medical waste. Well, you could be a pile of biological waste. Right. And you could have bits of syringes and plastic bags and things stuck in you, but those things aren't actually alive. They're just part of you. Okay. But see, they have malleable flesh.
It's like we need a bag.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah, you could do that. Well, that's actually one of the powers they have.
Okay. Finding things.
Their bodies are covered in a couple yorts of doughy, gooey material that their actual substance is beneath that. So it's like their skin is malleable.
So you could play Compy the compost heap from Rocco's Modern Life.
I guess I'm not sure.
Compost heap. I
love that show. But, oh yeah, you could do a compost heap, sure, as a pile. But they can form you know, like I could take my fist and like form like a sword out of it or something.
Okay.
Or you know,
or
give myself like sideburns made out of goo.
So they're kind of like those blobby aliens from Star Frontiers. Can't remember what they're called, but they can form like appendages and things.
Right, but they're not. They have to sculpt it.
So they have to
like they can't just concentrate and their hand turns into a knife. They'd have to actually take it and sculpt it like Play-Doh with their other hand, or have someone else do it. So actually, they get bonuses if they have the edge that gives them high artistic ability. You know, they can actually form better.
Okay.
Like they could get a bonus to their charisma by like sculpting their goop into like, you know, a big pompadour and sideburns or something. Or if they, or they get a bonus to some fighting stuff if they made spikes or armor. They can build calluses and stuff out of it.
Okay.
So yeah, that's one of the powers they have access to.
Are there any other more playable races?
There are a few that were introduced in the Whole Hole, and there will be some introduced in Holy Crab.
Okay.
The Whole Hole introduced fun guys, which are sentient mushroom people.
Right.
And they have spores, different types of spores they can shoot out of their gills. They have gills in various parts of the body. And there's a whole bunch of different types of spores to choose from. There's like soporific spores that make their enemies fall asleep. They have agglutinative spores, which are like gooey and sticky, and a whole bunch of others. Luminescent spores, things like that. Then there are snells, which evolved from snails.
Okay, makes sense.
And they have several different things they can do, but obviously they have a big shell on their head, and they can like.
Oh, on their head, not on their back.
It's like their hairdo.
Oh, okay.
Or a hat. Kind of. Yeah, I mean it kind of goes into the middle of their back.
Okay.
You know, but they can slurp themselves up into the shell.
Kinda like
Obviously, they can't move when they're doing that, but it gives them really good armor. And then there are a race called flues. Flues evolved from flies, but they don't fly anymore. That's why it's past tense. See, so they're called flues. They don't have wings anymore.
Okay.
And flues talk really, really fast. I can talk faster than I can talk. So it'd be kind of, whenever I write,
I know the
as
perfect
a flue,
person to play that.
Yeah. So anytime I write something, like every section of the book starts with a little anecdote written by somebody. I don't use any space bars when I'm,
when you're writing
spaces when a flue is talking. It just all blends together.
Okay.
Yeah. And then in the new book, Holy Crap, I'm introducing coblins, which are mutant ears of corn.
Okay.
Which are also the mascots for Con on the Cob.
Yes, I remember seeing that.
Right. Also, there are things called dunkses, which evolved from dung beetles.
Okay.
And what's the other one? Maybe marshfellows.
Marshfellows.
I'm introducing.
okay.
Marshfellows may end up being a type of cream filling. I haven't decided yet.
Okay.
But I think there was a third one that I'm forgetting. I don't know. If you want to
It'll
know,
be a mystery.
get the book.
Get the book. Yeah. I think we have a good idea of what sort of characters you're going to be now. I do have 3 questions still, and we'll try and because I think we've taken up everyone's time.
Hey, they can turn it off if they're not having.
That's
fun.
true. That is true. And by this point, if you're still listening, you're probably one of my rabble masters. That's what I call the people who listen through my long vlogs all the way.
Hey, well, those are the good people.
Yeah, exactly.
So
They're master rabble masters.
awesome.
Rabble
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Hi, Tab. We getting ready for the party?
Yeah, I was just trying to figure out where I was gonna.
If we need to leave, let us know.
Yeah.
It's only 11.
Yeah, we should be done soon anyway.
Okay.
But okay, so
No, you're plenty of time. I was just trying to think ahead of.
Cool. I left some drinks in the refrigerator. They're not appropriate for the kids' party, but you guys can have them later.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So, 3 questions. All right, so now that we have a general idea of what sort of people we could be, and we've heard about these different places we can go, what sort of adventures would an average group go on? Like, are they adventurers, or...
Well, no, okay. That really depends on the boss. The boss is what we call the Game Master.
Okay.
And we have the boss blocker, which is the Game Master's screen.
Right.
You know? Anyway, the idea behind that is it depends on the playing style of the characters. Personally, I like stories. Role-playing is much more fun to me than just hack and slash. So I try to make my stories make sense, you know. And, I mean, if you just want to say, we're adventurers, that's what we do, you can do that. That's why I introduced those occupational edges, is to give everyone an actual job and a reason for doing what they're doing. But one of those jobs you can choose from is called a gadabout. And a gadabout is like an explorer. It's like a wandering adventurer type. So the guys who write the books, like Tucana Condor Flaminguez and Credulous Schmeckle and anyone like that, they're mostly gadabouts that write for the whole hole. The whole hole is actual publication in the game.
Okay.
So when you're holding the actual physical book, it's also a prop for the game. It is the actual book that you would have in the game, except for the appendices at the end.
Right. Okay, so like, for example, you could have, like, a gadabout, you said?
Yeah.
So you have, like, a master gadabout who's trying to gather up a bunch of lowlifes in order to go on an expedition down into the
Keister
of God
you
to see
that. I mean, the world is very expansive. The entire book of the whole hole is like 228 pages, and it just describes Keister Island. So every one of those books is going to have its own chunk of the world.
And it definitely sounds like there's a lot of room to like expand upon where
there is. And the new book, the new core rule book, introduces a lot of new lands as well, and expands upon the ones that were introduced in the original book. So there's like the Pax Aroma is a new section that was never even in the original book. Okay, and that's kind of a little bit like ancient Rome, ancient Greece kind of place. Like. But there's more to it than that. It's not just that. And then, like, some of the cultures and lands are based, or at least influenced by ancient Earth cultures or even existing Earth cultures. But I don't want to say, like, okay, this is our Japan, and this is our India, and this is our Rome. So they're different.
That's like, partially, like...
Right, so what I like to do is, like, okay, you go to a place that is influenced by, like, say, Japan. Like, the Kingdom of the Dong is influenced by Japan.
Oh, okay.
It's kind of a combination between, like,
I like that,
like Japan, like, feudal Japan, and, like, 1920s gangster-era Chicago.
Interesting.
But without machine guns and cars.
Okay. Well, actually, that was my other question I wanted to ask you here was... what level of like technological development do they have? Like, is this like post-apocalyptic? Or?
Well, it's post-apocalyptic. So it's like so far in the future that they had to kind of start over.
Okay.
But there's still remnants of the time before the Flush that exist, even though it's so far in the future. One of the things that happened with all the various cataclysms has created some kind of effect wherein things aren't what they should be necessarily. Like stuff that should have rotted away long ago is still there. Or like stuff that should be tiny is huge, or stuff that should be huge is tiny.
So like come across a giant Duracell battery?
Yeah, like there's a guy who lives in a giant lunchbox.
Okay.
Or one of the characters in one of the adventures that I wrote, his name is Grease Gizzard Big Gulp, and he's a competitive eating champion. He lives inside of a giant Pringles can. So there's all kinds of, you can do anything like that.
Yeah.
But technologically... in the whole hole, I introduced something called Grun's powder, and which is like gunpowder.
Grun's powder.
But they started creating new weapons and things that use that. So there are very primitive guns.
Okay, so it's like maybe Victorian era, where it's like
I mean, it depends on which culture you're in. Right. Different parts of the world are different.
So mostly medieval, but with some
gunpowder.
But
you can find artifacts. You know, like you could potentially find like a machine gun, but you'd probably think it was like an automatic armpit cleaning device or something.
Especially if you're a pilot.
Right. So there's
it's like, it's so airy now.
That's part of what it is whenever you find an ancient human race artifact, chances are you're going to misconstrue what it really was for.
Okay.
That doesn't mean that they don't have things nowadays that represent them. Like our buildings still have doors on them. So if we find an ancient human door, we'll probably know it's a door. But maybe not. Maybe we'll think it's a surfboard or something. But or maybe we'll find a surfboard and think it's a door. Who knows? But so usually, though, in most adventures, it's like medieval fantasy level of technology.
Okay. All right. One last question before we wrap it up.
Yeah.
Now, most games I know, or at least creators, their world has like an equivalent of the archetype dragon, like the one big monster that you never want to come across if you're out adventuring. What does Mutha Oith have?
Well, a lot of them, but no dragons.
Well, it doesn't have to be a dragon. But
most of the creatures in Lowlife evolved from ancient creatures, and it's very subtle though. Most of them you can't tell what it evolved from because it was so long ago. Right. Or they came over from Middle Oith or something like that, or they're just some new thing that has evolved. And some of them are just unique creatures. There's this thing called Zonkel, which is in the whole hole, which is like a huge thing that would eat dragons for, like, breakfast mints or something.
Does it live in the
breakfast mints, a thing. I don't know, after dinner mints.
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, no, it doesn't live in the Keister, but it lives on this this section called Zonkel's Nest, which is across the straits from Keister Island on another island.
Okay.
Across the miniature Gulf. Yeah, so there are a lot of crazy, huge monsters. There's the Sphinx, Sphincs. Get it?
Yeah.
CTS maybe. Anyway, it tells fart jokes and your mama jokes, and then instead of riddles. But there's a thing called a squiggly mass, which is one of the more powerful creatures, which basically just looks like a big mass of spaghetti and tentacles all massed up together. But it's really intelligent, and it's a Zazz waggling thing, and it has like all kinds of servitor beasts and things. And then some of the contaminants can get really powerful too.
Okay.
They start out like wusses, which are little wispy things that all their powers are. They can't even like physically affect anything more than just kind of bumping into it, but not enough to really hurt anything. But they can change the way things smell. That's their power. So they're more useful. They don't really have any combat ability.
Yeah.
But in role playing or story wise, you can think of interesting ways to change the smell of things that
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
There's another
I was
type.
actually just thinking about how you could actually use that to your advantage.
There's a type of contaminant, and I may be getting these names wrong without a whole list in front of me.
Right.
There's one called a raunch, and I'm thinking that's the one. It's kind of a little conical thing with legs, and that thing is all about burrowing inappropriately. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Yeah, its main attack is, well, anal rape.
Ugh.
Yeah. Hi, kids. But anyway, then there's one called a badass, which is just this huge hulking potato-like monstrosity with huge tusks, and it has one giant fist. So it has two arms, one of which is really all withered and tiny and atrophied, and the other one is this huge fist.
Oh no! Here comes a giant badass.
Yep. Oh, I just made a snorting honk.
That's awesome.
Yeah, they're called badasses. Yeah, so see, when I name the creatures, a lot of times some of them are just stupid puns, and then I kind of regret some of them later. But I'm like, that's already in print.
Yeah.
And then some of them are, I try to think like, why would you have to give some majestic name to a creature? Like if this big monster with the tusks and the giant fist is chasing after me, and I'm running into town, I'm like, there's the monster chasing me. It's a huge badass. It's going to kill me. To me, that makes more sense to call it a badass.
Yeah.
And that thing's a wuss.
It's a
All
huge
it can do
badass.
is
It's
make my
gonna pound me
pancakes
down.
smell like biscuits or something.
Okay.
So a lot of times I try to contextually,
Okay.
because I figure the contaminants would be named by contaminators because they're the ones who are all into it.
Right.
So they don't need big majestic names or even like, arcane sounding names. They're more named like for like how powerful they are. There's like wusses and menches and badasses and quite a few others.
Yeah. Well, okay. Well, then one last follow-up question, and before I let you go ahead and give us the website and all the associated products and stuff. Because you mentioned a couple of things like where you got the ideas for stuff. Like what were your main inspirations for like this setting and all these silly words?
I'm weird for one thing, but a long time ago, Shane Hensley, the guy who runs Great White Games Pinnacle, creator of Savage World and Deadlands and stuff, he was a fan of my art back in the day when I was doing freelance work for some other game companies. And when he created Savage Worlds, he just said, "Hey, Andy, I want you to do a game for me about anything you want."
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Cool, okay."
Convenient.
And then I said, "Can I write it too?" And he asked for a writing sample, and he's like, "Oh, man, you can write as well as you draw." So, yeah, write it. So I wrote it. And the original idea, though, a long time ago, is doing a line of books with Joe Goodman from Goodman Games called The Wanderers Guild that we're probably going to put out again in a few years.
Okay. Or
a few months or a few days. I don't know, sometime. We're going to reissue The Wanderers Guild when I actually have time to do anything. But as new books. Anyway, I was going to do a book, or I pitched the idea of a book called Lowlife, which would be a guide to, like, slimes and molds and puddings and things. The lowliest of creatures.
Right.
How's it going, my man? Come be on our video. No, come on over. Hey, guys, Tim is here. Woo, here comes Tim. Woo. Yeah, no, it's not live, but it'll be.
No, it's just
it'll be on
recording for, like, an
YouTube.
interview.
This is Tim.
Hello.
Hello.
Andy's a wonderful person. Listen to everything he says.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Tim. Oh yeah, you were asking me a question. I was answering it, and I got
Your
sidetracked
inspirations for
because
like
Tim walked in. Oh yeah, right. Lowlife. originally, it was going to be a book just about like slimes and molds and puddings and oozes and all those. The Wanderers Guild was a non-setting specific set of like monster books and things that you could use in any campaign.
Okay.
They were very cool, actually, and they were all based on different. I keep shaking the table. I apologize for shaking the table. If anyone gets a headache, bill me. Yeah. So anyway, Wanderers Guild was monster books that were not setting specific, but they were like habitat specific.
Okay.
So the first one was Monsters of the Endless Dark, the Wanderers Guild Guide to Subterranean Organisms.
Yeah.
Then we did Monsters of the Boundless Blue, the Wanderers Guild Guide to Aquatic Organisms, which was all like ocean-going organisms. And then we did a book called Primeval Groves, which was about plants, all kinds of monstrous plants and things. When Joe got into doing Dungeon Crawl Classics and stuff, Wanderers Guild kind of got pushed aside because Dungeon Crawl Classics was a much more better use of his time financially and everything. So, plus I had a baby right about then, well, my wife did, and things got kind of out of control. So anyway, Wanderers Guild, I still own the rights to, so we're going to eventually be putting out more Wanderers Guild books. But right now, it's just kind of in hiatus. I had the idea for a book called Lowlife that would be a guide to slimes, molds, fungus, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
We ended up not making that. So then when Shane asked me to do a book for Savage Worlds, I thought, oh, maybe I could revisit this Lowlife idea. And I had the idea to make it take place, like, in your plumbing and stuff. And it was going to be, you know, the same kinds of things like it is now. Like, it'd be cockroaches and, you know, bugs.
Like everything.
And there would be, like, living sludge that would somehow, you know. So it'd be, like, kind of like what Lowlife is now, but it would just take place in, like, the modern day
like
on
sewer.
Earth. In the sewers and in the actual pipes under your sink and stuff like that. And probably have to, like, hide from humans and things. And, but then I was like, well, that's really limiting.
Yeah.
To say you're just restricted to pipes in the sewer and stuff. Especially because there's really no options as far as where to go. Because a pipe is just a long tube.
Yeah.
You're like, okay, which way do you want to go?
Left or right?
Go that way. Okay. You know, you either go back the way you came or you keep going forward. And you can have adventures that deal with sewers and pipes and stuff, and they can be very successful. But I didn't think it was
enough for
expansive
setting.
enough for an entire setting. So I just kind of blew it up from there into its own world. And decided to make it Earth way in the future.
Go all out.
But I didn't want to do post-apocalyptic because it's been done a million times. And it's cool. I love post-apocalyptic. But I don't like to rehash what other people have already done because there's no point. Someone else already did it better. So I'm not saying everyone who's writing post-apocalyptic or steampunk or medieval fantasy or anything shouldn't do it. I'm just saying I wanted to do something that was different. So, yes, it's post-apocalyptic in the fact that it takes place after many apocalypses, not just one apocalypse.
Post-apocalypse.
Yeah, post every apocalypse possible. Like everything. It's ever like a chunk of the moon fell off and crashed into the Oith, and now we have the Moonular cheese field, which takes up a large chunk of a continent. And it's actually made of cheese. Who would have thought? So yeah, that's the origins of it. It's expanded a lot since then. But the general gist was I liked the idea of taking the organisms that everyone thinks are just garbage or leftovers and making them become the dominant forms of life.
Interesting.
So
you turn everything on.
And it's not just like what we consider now as weak things. Like it's what like the actual filth of society nowadays. Like everyone hates cockroaches and worms get no respect, and so people have said, hey, why don't you put like bunny people or mice or something? And like, well, they don't really fit. They're not. Maybe mice would.
Maybe flea people.
Yeah. Well, there's a whole list of things that I may eventually make races out of, but whenever I introduce a new player character race, I want to make sure that it's significantly different from the other ones. So if we had flea people, which we may eventually, they'd probably have some kind of blood-sucking ability or super jumping ability or something. So they would be a good choice. But I didn't want to have, necessarily, okay, we've already got croaches.
Yeah.
So we don't necessarily need, beetle people because we've already got cockroach people.
Yeah.
And usually most people consider cockroaches to be filthier and lowlier than beetles.
Right.
So that's why I decided to use dung beetles for dunxes. Even though throughout history on Earth they've been revered.
Yeah.
But only when you call them scarab beetles, not when you call them dung beetles.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things. So the whole concept was build up the lowliest of things and make them into the coolest of things.
Okay. It's definitely cool. It's very creative,
Thanks.
and you can tell it's very thought out. I like the fact that it's essentially like, with geek culture becoming more mainstream and people understanding when we're talking about dragons and spells and stuff now, the fact that you've taken that and then made us geeky again by changing all the terms. Because we're talking about giggity giggers and Zazz wagglers, and nobody's going to know what we're talking about.
I mean, it's not that I just wanted
I know
to
you didn't
be-
do it on purpose.
Well, yeah, I did
but-
do it on purpose. I just didn't want it. I didn't say, like, I want to be different for the sake of being different.
Right.
I just wanted to do something fun.
And
I wanted everything to fit the flavor of the setting. My favorite stories are the ones where the world comes to you as you're reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if the book starts with a preface that says, this is the world as it is now, and it just says, okay, humans are dead, now we've got cockroach people. I'd much rather have that, the secrets come out through the storytelling, rather than just flat out say everything.
yeah, absolutely.
So I feel the way to do that is to really immerse yourself into the game and the world. In order to do that, you've got to have your own terminology.
Absolutely.
But it's got to be terminology that people can still make sense of. Like if I say, Zazz waggling, at first you're like, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
But if I say, waggle some Zazz at that guy over there and turn him into a lunchbox, then you know what waggling Zazz is, Or if I say an army of the danged is coming toward us, you can probably
Have a general
figure out from the
idea.
context.
I don't know what that is, but that sounds unpleasant.
Right. So I didn't want to just make up nonsense words.
Sure.
I wanted them to actually make sense. And I think for the most part, it
Oh,
works. There are words that I've made up or things I've named, and then they go into print, and then I read them, and I'm like, I wish I would have named that something different.
Yeah, that's what future editions are for.
Right.
But okay, well, thank you. Be sure to check out Andy's stuff on, or my stuff, because I'm Andy. This
Right,
is
I'm
Andy.
Dan. I forgot about that.
Check out my stuff on cononthecob.com. You can check out at, what other website am I forgetting?
MuthaOithCreations.com.
All right, yeah.
You can buy all your jazz
Right.
at lowtique.com. LOWTIQUE.
Okay.
Like boutique, but low-teak.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay? That's where you can get lots of Lowlife stuff. You can get Lowlife miniatures, Dementalism Lowlife card game. I've got a couple more Lowlife card games in the works. We've got Dementalism and 3 expansions out right now.
Okay.
And I've got a new one that I'm working on called Gazoink, which is a giggity geeking card game.
Okay.
And then I've got a game called Slog Pile that I'm working on. Slogs are another type of creamfillian-based organism that are evolved from Twinkies, but they're more like slugs. They're like beasts. Okay. And Slog Pile, you have plastic slogs. They have to stack on top of each other, but there's different sizes and shapes of them.
Okay.
And you're trying not to topple it over, kind of Jenga-esque.
Okay, gotcha.
But there's some twists to it where I don't want to give it away, but when that Kickstarter for that comes out, I'll be sure to let you know.
Absolutely.
What else is going on? Oh, when is this going on? When are you going to put this up?
This?
Yeah, this.
Well, you guys will probably see this within the next week or so.
Cool. If you get this up by Saturday, everybody needs to know that Oddmall.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
If anyone is anywhere near Ohio, come to Akron, Ohio, Saturday, May 10th. It's free, totally free show called Oddmall Emporium of the Weird. I'll be there with all my jazz. We'll have gaming. We'll have about 220 vendors selling all kinds of weird stuff, art, oddities.
Where is it going to be
games,
located?
at the John S. Knight Center in downtown Akron, Ohio.
Okay.
Oddmall.info. We also have Oddmall in Seattle coming up if you happen to live out in that area. And it's super fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And there will be links to all of these places in the description for the video. Thank you, GuildMasterDan.
You're welcome, Andy. Hey, how'd you get so sexy?
Oh, I don't know. I guess I was just born that way.
Some of us get all the luck.
Yeah, get all the juice, as it were.
The juice.
The jazz.
The jazz.
The Zazz.
That's the line, man.
Yeah, I think we're done.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
So,
good.
once again, I'm GuildMasterDan.
And I'm Andy Hopp with 2 P's.
2 P's.
Not one.
One. Okay. And I want to remind you again to check out all of my past podcasts and YouTube videos at GuildMasterDan. YouTube, you found it already if you're here,
Yeah,
so
obviously, yeah.
I don't need to tell you that. But I just want to let you know that I, GuildMasterDan, have a really deep, dark secret. See if you can figure out what it is in the comments section.
Till next time.
Okay. And remember, fish don't fry in the kitchen, beans don't burn on the grill. I don't know why I said that, other than that I had the Jefferson song stuck in my head earlier today.
That's fine.
All right, carry on.
Yeah, I know. I never know how to end these videos.
This is a good way to end it.
Yeah, it's good though. It's
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we should show them our butts. No, not our butts. Our elbows. Look at that. Okay.
Our elbows.
Yeah.